As I go through history, and we get through year by year by year, 1952 was a key year, and I knew that, and I started looking. I thought, all right, we're getting up to the point where, yes, it's the original six. Yes, NHL owners are blocking Philadelphia and LA from getting in. Philadelphia and Los Angeles tried numerous times to get into the NHL, and the NHL said, yeah, here's some hurdles, here's some hoops. Clear the hurdles, jump through the hoops, we'll talk about it. And they were usually the type that they couldn't get through. So the NHL was a very exclusive league, but there was a lot of guys playing hockey. So other professional leagues came up. Cue the WHL. Now, people who've been watching my history series, remember last month I talked about a Western Hockey League that shut down. It was done. Guess what? Came back. And you'll notice some familiar teams. So I'm just looking at 52-53, the first year that it's the WHL. It was a combination of the Pacific Coast Hockey League, the Western Canadian Senior Hockey League. And what we got out of this is something interesting. The Saskatoon Quakers were the first place team, 35-26-9. This league also played a 70-game schedule. Vancouver was next at 32-28-10, followed by the Stampeders. Yeah, the Calgary Stampeders at 31-27-12. The Edmonton Flyers, 31-28-11. The Seattle Bombers, 30-32-8, which is kind of a fun name when you think about it. The New Westminster Royals, 29-33-8. And of course, the New Westminster Royals name is well known out here on the West Coast. Probably not as much on the East Coast, but there are some pretty darn good hockey players that started out their careers as members of the New West Royals. Tacoma Rockets, 27-31-12. And then the Victoria Cougars at 26-36-8. So some interesting things here. And at some point, in 65 and 66, those 2 years, they would play an interlocking schedule with the American Hockey League, which was not what the American Hockey League would become. Now, for champions, Calgary would win it in 54, Edmonton would win it in 55, the Winnipeg Warriors, which were added after this, won it in 1956, the Brandon Regals win in 1957, Vancouver Canucks win in 1958, the Seattle Totems win in 1959. So interesting thing. Seattle Bombers, it doesn't work. So they pull the team out. They bring in the Seattle Americans, which has the weirdest logo I've ever seen. Look it up. Seattle Americans come in, and it's Uncle Sam with a hockey stick and skates on, and he's weird. Anyways, that doesn't work either, so they go to the Totems. And they have the Totems name for the rest of the time they're in the WHL. And I can kind of see why they would want Totems for their NHL team name because of something we'll get to. 1960, they win it. 1961, Vancouver wins it. 1962, the Portland Buckaroos. Great name. Fantastic name. They win it. 1962, it goes back to Edmonton. 1963, the San Francisco Seals win their first of back-to-back championships as they won it again in 64. The Portland Buckaroos win it in 65. The Victoria Cougars win it in 66. Seattle Totems win it in 67 and 68. 69, it goes to the Vancouver Canucks. 1970 goes to the Vancouver Canucks. What happened to the Canucks in 1970? What happened to these guys? They went to the NHL. Yeah. The NHL starts seeing the danger that this league presents. And this is part of the reason why the NHL owners finally went, fine, we'll expand. 1971, Portland wins it. 1972, the Denver Spurs win the championship, which is the Lester Patrick Trophy, a trophy which currently resides at the Hockey Hall of Fame. 1973, the Phoenix Roadrunners win their first of two. 1974, the Phoenix Roadrunners are the last champion of the Western Hockey League as a professional league, before we had the Western Hockey League as it is right now, which is juniors. Al Leader ran this league from its inception in 1952 till 1969, and he's in the Hall of Fame. Al was a transplant to the West Coast. He resided in Seattle for a very long time, became a naturalized American citizen, although he was born in Canada. He was born in Manitoba, but his heart was clearly in Seattle. Gave them 3 different chances to make it work. And the Seattle Totems and the Denver Spurs were given an option of joining the NHL. So in part to kill this league, the NHL says, hey, Denver, Seattle, we already got Vancouver. If we can get Denver and Seattle into the NHL, that league's dead. It falls apart. Denver can't get the kind of arena that the NHL is looking for, so the Denver Spurs end up joining the World Hockey Association. The Seattle Totems, they can't find the money. They end up in debt. The owner just can't make it work. So the Seattle Totems falls through too. But I look at this and I say, you know what? Did the NHL negotiate in bad faith? Did the NHL only offer Denver and Seattle an expansion team each for 1976 to kill the league? Maybe. I wouldn't roll against it. You look at some of the teams that existed in this league. The Denver Invaders. Great name if you ever get sick of Colorado Avalanche. Don't rule out Denver Invaders. California Seals. Yep. Spokane Spokes. If you can't think of a name, give yourself an extra 5 minutes. Don't go with Spokane Spokes. It's not good. Salt Lake Golden Eagles. That's a fantastic long-winded name. And the Los Angeles Blades. That's right, LA. So when you look at expansion, and we'll get up to 1967 in my history, and we look at this grand expansion into Western North America, the NHL had to do it. There was American Football League, and the NFL had to, make that work. Because again, a rival football league came out. The NFL had to do what it had to do. The NHL had to expand, or they were going to be looking at a league that was equal to theirs. In the end, the WHL folds, in part because of an NHL raid, and in part because between the World Hockey Association and the NHL, there just wasn't enough talent left over for them to put competitive teams on the ice. But it started out pretty darn well, and look at this. You've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 teams in the WHL, their first season as a league. The NHL had 6. So was the NHL more exclusive? Was the WHL more fun? Really depends on who you ask. And again, and this brings up a point that I wanted to make. Doug Bentley went and played for the Saskatoon Quakers to end out his career after he was done with the Chicago Blackhawks. None of the totals put up by any of the players that played for these teams count. And that will always bother me, and once we get to the World Hockey Association, you'll see that it does bother me on some level. Because guys like Gordie Howe, Bobby Hull, Davey Keon put up a ton of points in a league that now those numbers don't exist. And there are some all-time greats that played for these teams, and we don't necessarily recognize just how good they were because they played here. I know that's how the cookie crumbles. I know that's how life works. And history is written by the victors, thus NHL stats are the ones that matter. But for today, and for this video, I thought, let's make the WHL matter just a little bit and honor us reaching the point in history where this league was the thing. For the next 22 years, it's a thing. So while we get into Maurice Richard and Gordie Howe and Terry Sawchuk and Jacques Plante, all these guys as they become big, huge superstars, this league is breathing down their necks and eventually changes the face of the NHL. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.